Hey, what's going on, guys? Alex Zukin here from Mr. Build It. Welcome back to another week in the workshop. With Oktoberfest festivities right around the corner, we need ourselves a proper beer stein. Now, we need to create something that's going to prove to everybody that we're not here to mess around, we're here to have a good time. So we came up with this, what we're calling the barrel style beer stein. So without wasting any time, let me show you how I built it and let's get into the video. Let's go.
So right out of the gates, to get started, we knew we wouldn't be using a lathe to create the cylindrical shape for the beer stein. So instead, we're going to use angles. Now, to accomplish this, we went down to our local Home Depot and we picked up some of the 1/4-inch red oak. Now, we needed to create the angles on both edges to be a consistent angle throughout the entire cylindrical travel, if you will. And so the angle that we picked was 78 degrees. Now, you can go with different angles. Different angles will give you basically a different size of the beer stein in terms of diameter, but also it will give you a much harsher transition. So we felt 78 was appropriate enough to kind of make everybody happy. Once we chose the angle and we set our table saw, we used this yellow jig called the gripper. The gripper basically is just another jig that allows for you to press down on the stock on your table saw to create as a consistent cut through the entire piece of stock of wood. Also keeps your finger safe. Now, after we got all the lengths on both sides all tapered and angled the way we wanted them, we had to kind of chop everything up that would accommodate the overall height of the beer stein. So we brought everything to our miter station. Now, the trick at this point is to create repeatable cuts, right? So we created a little stop block, which is basically a scrap piece of wood that we screwed right into the plywood of the miter station. Once it was there, we just kind of bumped all the wood to it and kind of sliced and diced as we went. Now that we got the overall pieces, and I think it came out to about 15 pieces, all at 78 degrees, and the overall height was 5 inches. Once everything was all laid out, we were ready to proceed. Now that we got all of our 15 pieces angled and ready to go, lay them all down on the inside, the narrow part down, and the wide side, the outer part, up. Line them all up nice and straight, and then take the strongest tape you have and start taping as much as you can on top. Essentially, you're turning this thing into a rug. Then flip it over. It's going to be laying on its outer shell now. And you see all these channels and all these joints that are ready to be glued up. Take a fine tip glue bottle and start laying it from top to bottom on each row. Don't worry about doing too much, but make sure it's a consistent spread. Once that's ready, ensure that you have wood glue on the outer ends as well and roll it up like a snake. This is a super cool effect and you're gonna be really proud how it comes out. For clamping, I find it really helpful using an old ratchet strap and wrapping it tight together. Not too tight, just a light amount. Too much will squeeze out the glue and will cause the joints all to move out of line. And after about 20 minutes of the wood glue kind of settling in, take a damp rag and start wiping out all the squeeze out from the wood glue on the inside part of the beer stein. It's going to be the biggest pain in the butt, try to kind of sand it and grind it all out after everything is dried. So this is your best window of opportunity. Keep in mind, make sure the rag is not too wet. We don't want to bring too much water into the wood glue and make the structure weak. And after you're happy with the amount of wood glue you're able to clean up, it's a good idea to take a tape measure and check both sides of the cylinder to make sure it's as even as possible. You know, there's an old saying, if it looks straight, it probably is straight. And when you're happy with everything, go ahead and let it sit overnight and get as strong as possible before we get working. After giving the project as much time that it needed to dry, I came back and I removed all the tape. Now, before I started cleaning up all the dried up wood glue, I decided to create the base. For the base, I took 3/4-inch red oak just to match the overall theme, and I set the cylinder on top. Then I took a pencil and I traced out the entire bottom, focusing on all the detailed sharp angles. Then I removed the cylinder and brought the base to my bandsaw. Now on the bandsaw, my mission was to create the sharp transitional cuts of this polygon. So I used the widest blade I had, which was about 3/4 of an inch, 3-tooth per inch blade, and I went and took my time to focus on each cut individually. After that, I brought the base to the belt sander and cleaned up anything that was missed on the bandsaw. After being done with the bottom, I then decided to do a test fit, dry fit, and by placing the piece right in the middle of the cylinder. This will give me structural support when it comes to sanding. For sanding, I used 150 grit sandpaper and I worked all the beveled angles that were sticking out. I basically try to run them over as much as I can just to make the cylinder look as round as possible. When seating the base, I laid out a perimeter with tape for the glue to squeeze out onto. Then I placed a liberal amount of glue itself and then seated the base. Once everything squeezed down, I then removed the tape, cleaned out anything excess with a damp rag, and I was ready to dry. Now comes the handle. The handle is probably the funnest part of the project. Let your imagination run wild. I basically drew out the highest and the lowest part of the handle, and I kind of tinkered with a lot of different designs and patterns. Once I landed on one, I brought it to my bandsaw. Now I used my 3/4 inch blade simply because my smaller blade broke right before this step, and so I kind of made it work. All the choppy, hard cuts, I basically cleaned them up on my spindle sander. Once everything was done, I wanted to create this chamfered edge throughout the entire handle to kind of give it that smoother feel in your hand. And to accomplish this, all I did was simply hold it at about roughly 45-degree angle to the abrasive part of the spindle sander or the belt, and I just kind of manually created them. Basically eyeballed it. It's not super perfect, but it looks great. Once I was happy with the overall style and shape of the handle, it was ready for installation. Now, oak tends to crack when screws go into it if the holes weren't pre-drilled, so I pre-drilled some pilot holes on both the cylinder of the beer stein and the handle, and then applied wood glue and a 1/2 inch screw on both the top and the bottom part of the handle and installed it that way. Once ensuring the handle was dry, I needed to level out the top of the beer stein, so to do this I used my table saw, placed the flat part against the fence and created a parallel flat surface by running it on the table saw and then rotating with every pass. Right before we start burning and using a torch, I decided to give it a once over with 150 grit sandpaper to round over any edges and give it the overall even feel before we start introducing some of the heat.
Now, when it comes to giving our beer stein that cool burnt look, I went with the Map Pro gas simply because it gets hot real quick and I can get it to cool down very quickly as well. Then I partnered with the TS4000 torch. The TS4000 torch has an onboard starting mechanism as well as an auto lock, which allows for me to focus on getting nice, good, consistent patterns without keeping my finger on the trigger.
To get rid of any harsh burn marks or any inconsistent patterns, I used 150 grit, then 220 grit to blend everything together. This will give it that one even final look that we're looking for. When it came to figuring out what finish we wanted to use, we settled on polyurethane. Now the question you might ask, is it food safe? Well, one of the articles I read in Popular Woodworking magazine, they're saying that even polyurethane could be a food safe finish so long as you let it cure for 30 days at room temperature, which is 65 to 75 degrees.
My gosh, guys, thank you so much for watching these videos. A big thank you to Burns-O-Matic for partnering with us on this project. If you're brand new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button right over there. We put a video out every single week, and I don't want you to miss a single one. Here's a couple other videos you could check out as well. Make sure you like, comment, and share these videos. Let me know what you guys think in the comment sections down below. Tune in out this week. We'll see you guys next week. See ya.